Well, see, we are continuing today in Mishna Yomi. We find ourselves in the beginning of Parak Beis, chapter 2 in Meseches Moed Katan. And today we'll be doing Mishnayos Aleph and Beis. So the Mishnah says as follows: Misha hafach zeisov ve'eru ovel o ones. So an interesting case. So remember again, we learned before that halacha lamaisa on chalamayid, one is permitted to go ahead and do malacha for davara avid, in order to stave off, in order to prevent a loss. So in the following situation, here's what happened. Person is ready to press their olives, and what they do is, as the olives softened, they turned over the olives in anticipation of pressing the olives. That's hipuch zeisim, turning over the olives. In this case, the olives were prepared to be pressed before Yom Tiv, but then some unavoidable circumstance occurred, and therefore the olives were not pressed before Yom Tiv. So what are the examples of unavoidable circumstances? Iru Evel, Chas v'Shalom, person is plunged into Avelos, a person loses a loved one, and as a result is now in halachic mourning. O ones, or some other extenuating circumstance. O shitu polim, or my workers didn't show up. So in all of these cases now, the olives are ready to be pressed, and the problem is if I wait until after Yom Tiv, spoilage will set in, and I will end up losing these olives. So what's the halakha in these cases? Rabbi Yehuda says you can take the board. Now, interestingly enough, the way olives were pressed is they were pressed multiple times. But the most important thing, says Rabbi Yehuda, is that first press. Because once the first press is done, that'll save the olives from the majority of spoilage. So Rabbi Yehuda says you could essentially do the first press on Yom Tiv. You put the board over the olives, put that on, and leave it like that till after Yom Tiv. So the license is only to do the first press. Rabbi Yossi Omer Zolef v'Gomer v'Gaf Kedak. Or Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can go ahead and spill the olives onto the press. You could even finish the entire pressing, and you could even seal up the vats on chalamayid. In other words, Rabbi Yossi says you can pretty much do the entire process of pressing from beginning to end on chalamayid. What's Rabbi Yossi's logic? Rabbi Yossi holds that essentially once you have the heter to press on Yom Tiv, because remember again, in this situation, I didn't do anything wrong. My entire intention was to go ahead and do all of the pressing prior to Yom Tiv. Then extenuating circumstances came about. So Rabbi Yossi will say, since you really did your part, right, you prepared, but there were extenuating circumstances, once you're allowed to press, you're allowed to go ahead and finish the entire process. Incredible. So the Mishnah goes weiter. It turns out that halacha lamaisa, the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda, namely you could do the first pressing, but not subsequent pressing. Mishnah base, a similar case. V'chein misha haya yeno b'sol chabar ve'eru evel o ones. So another example. Let's say I have wine inside the pit. So right, you would normally press, you crush the grapes. The wine would accumulate inside of a pit, but obviously the wine has to be put into barrels, otherwise the wine will spoil. So in the case over here is the wine is in the pit, but was supposed to be put into barrels before Yom Tiv, but alas, something occurred, namely, Evel, Chas v'Shalom, a person was in Avelos, was in mourning because of the loss of a close relative, O ones, some other of unavoidable circumstance, O shit u polim, or my workers just didn't show up for work. So what's the halacha? Zolev v'Gomer v'Gav Kedako Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, halacha l'maisa, put the wine in the barrels. Put the wine in the barrels. This is the same Rabbi Yossi as the last Mishnah. Since I was not derelict in my responsibilities, I did what I was supposed to do, but there was an unavoidable circumstance. So Rabbi Yossi says that halacha l'maisa, you have a license on chalamayid to put the wine in the barrels, put them in the barrels, seal up the barrels, finish the process. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Oset lo limudim bishvil shalo yachmitz. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda says you can make limudim. The Bartanura says nisarim shal eight, wooden boards. You could put wooden boards over the pit in order that the wine should not spoil. But however, Rabbi Yehuda holds that halacha l'maisa, you cannot go ahead and draw the wine, out of the pit. I realized actually I misspoke before. The Rambam paskins in both of these cases. The Bartanura says halacha k'Rabbi Yossi. I'm sorry, I said before the Rambam passes like Rabbi Yehuda. He passes like Rabbi Yossi in both cases, namely that halacha l'maisa. Once you did everything that was incumbent upon you, but now you were visited by extenuating circumstances, halacha l'maisa, you have the right to finish off the process until it is complete, even on Chol Hamoed. All right, we will stop over here. Wishing everyone a wonderful day. Tomorrow we'll continue on in Mirz Hashem in Parak Beis and Maseches Moed Katan. Shkayach, everyone.